Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. I thought I'd do a video today about death. A bit of a morbid topic, but equally it's one which I think is very important to recover in the OCD community. By the way, I thought I'd take a little opportunity to sit outside today just whilst the weather's kind of holding up in England. I don't want to speak too soon because it's probably going to start raining again in the next 5 minutes, as has the weather been in the UK recently. It's been very, very bad. So any chance to sit outside is welcome. So yeah, with death, right? It plays a big part in many of the OCD cycles, right? So health OCD, harm OCD, magic thinking OCD, solipsism, derealization, all those sorts of things. And it's an uncertain topic, obviously. We don't really know what happens after we die. There's lots of different viewpoints on what happens from an atheist and religious standpoint, but no one really knows what actually happens. And yeah, whatever views you have on death is absolutely fine. You're entitled to your own views and your own opinions. This video isn't really going to be about me being right and you being wrong. This video is mainly just about how I brought down my catastrophized thinking about death, and how I helped to manage the prospect of death with a more calmer and more rational outlook, just so I wasn't so fused and so scared of death, right? Because there was a time for me, maybe about a year ago, when I had fear of death try and latch. I remember I was just sitting in my office at work, and all of a sudden I just started really thinking about death and what happens after we die, the uncertainty, the fact that we're just here on this planet in outer space. We're only going to be here for a minute point in time out of all the years that Earth has existed. And in that moment, it sort of made my mind blow, like my mind was just blown. I couldn't really process it, and thinking about that in the moment is quite scary. And with OCD, obviously, it makes it go from 0 to 100 in a moment, and it makes it feel as real as it can possibly get. So I remember after I had this latching attempt, I'd be walking around, feeling my heartbeat every second, just double checking it's still beating, thinking, oh, what if in this next moment I'm just going to pass away, I'm just going to drop dead, I'm just going to die, because you don't have the guarantee of that next moment until it arises. The reality is at one moment we could be alive and the next we could be dead. Heart attacks, cancer, getting hit by a bus, all of these things. It's just so uncertain, and you don't have that certainty on a moment by moment basis, and you don't know if you're going to make it to the next moment. As morbid as that sounds, it's just the reality of it. So I really had OCD try and latch to that, and it was very, very scary. I remember I nearly had panic attacks over it. And just thinking about the whole prospect of death, the fact that one day we're just not going to be here, we're not going to exist. And for that to sink in, it takes a bit of time. It took a bit of time for it to sink in for me. I couldn't quite process the fact that one day I wouldn't be roaming this earth, because all I've ever known is just consciousness, right? And in a way, you kind of mourn your own death. Phil did a really good article about this, which is on the OCD recovery website, and he speaks about his problems that he had with fear of death, and the fact that you have to mourn your own death in a way that makes you accept it. And then when you do that, you can really get under the fear of death, and you can keep living your life without that catastrophized fear and beliefs around death. So yeah, just in terms of death, as I said, I'm not proving or disputing anyone's beliefs. We don't know what happens when we're going to die. Me myself, I'm an atheist, so I believe once we die, but you might have a different opinion, which is fine. But I just wanted to look at some rational beliefs about death and how we can really tune down that fear response towards death, which may be driving your OCD cycle. So I think with death, so more than likely when we die, I think that's it. There's nothing, right? If that's the case, then if we do pass away, and if that fate does await us, then surely it's not awful. Surely it's not 100% terrible. Well, why is that? Well, when we don't exist, there's the absence of suffering, hardship, rejection, physical pain. As we grow older, life gets more and more difficult. As you get old, things go wrong with your health and mobility, and you don't look the way that you did, and your physical health goes. So when we actually do pass on, we have the absence of that suffering. to say that death is bad is like saying to live is 100% fantastic in every moment. But it's not like that, is it? To live is to suffer sometimes. Especially with OCD. A lot of the time, if you've got chronic OCD, your life is going to be suffering, right? I'm not saying that you should die and rather die just to bring that to an end. I'm just saying we can't really say that death is awful, because when that does happen, it actually does take away some of the suffering and the hardship that we do experience in our life, right? Also as well, in terms of death, like, we need to look at it as rationally as we can. And there's some irrational beliefs around death, saying I must not die, I shouldn't die. And you sort of, when you're younger, you don't really think about it. Death sort of doesn't really come into the back of your mind until, I'd say, you're maybe late teens, early 20s, and it sort of hangs over you, but it doesn't really have that grip. And then as you move through your life, I find that death sort of gradually comes to the fore, because obviously with each moment we're closer to it, right? So that can happen. So we need to look at it rationally. To say that you shouldn't die is, well, it's irrational, because there's no evidence to prove the fact that you shouldn't. That if we absolutely shouldn't die, then people from 1000 BC would still be existing now, but they're not, clearly, because they've all passed on. And if there is someone who's still existing who's 3,000 years old, then I want to know about it. So we need to try and look at that as rationally as we can, bring down the catastrophized thinking, and look at the shoulds, oughts and musts about death. As well, what really helped me with death was Stoicism, right? Marcus Aurelius especially, he's got a book called Meditations, which is on the OCD recovery reading list. And reading some of the content in that book was really helpful for death. So he describes death as a release, a natural dissolution of the elements, a relief from pain and suffering that I've just alluded to there. And he says that because it's this release, nothing natural can be inherently evil or bad. And he sees it as a natural part of the life cycle. So that, looking at it from that angle, really helped me as well. It just helped me to bring down those catastrophized beliefs about death, because it can be very scary. It can be very scary until you've really processed and come to terms with the fact that one day we're not going to exist anymore. It's very it's almost very unsettling in a way. And until you dispute those beliefs around death and really try and look at it rationally, then it's always going to have that grip over you. I remember so much of a lot of my journey when OCD was trying to latch on, it was just around death. I had times where, when I had the heartbeat stuff going on, would I double check my heartbeat because I was scared of death, and I also had a bit of a heart issue at the time. I was just all consumed with it because I hadn't broken it down, and I was also doing other behaviours as well. So I remember I couldn't go to sleep because I was really scared in case I fell asleep that I wouldn't wake up. And so I'd be laying in bed at night just trying not to go to sleep. And I remember just how tired I was, how out of sorts I was, really, all because I was really, really scared of dying, right? And until I broke down the fears of death, looked at some Stoic principles, looked at the shoulds, oughts and musts, and just accepted that my fate is that one day I'm not going to be here, it had the upper hand with me. And so I think death, in a way, although it's a very taboo subject and we don't really want to talk about it, it's very important, especially for us with OCD. And you'll find that as you really sort of look at death, keep your behaviours good as well. Don't be like scared to leave your house because you're going to die. Or I remember with me as well, sometimes I'd just stay in my room or sat down because it meant I had less chance of my heart stopping. Don't do any of that. You're going to have to look at your beliefs alongside your behaviours and your life structure being very good if death is currently a problem for you. But there's definitely a way to look at it more rationally. Once again, I'm not saying that from a scientific or religious standpoint. It's obviously everybody has their own views on death, and I think it's a very interesting topic, and one that we shouldn't just brush under the carpet because we're afraid of it. It's we should bring it out of the dark. And I know Nick and Rob have made some good videos on this before, and Phil's obviously got a very good article online which goes into death a little bit more. So just to recap, I think very important to look at death from a decatastrophized standpoint. you know, really sort of getting into why the prospect of not being here isn't that bad in the scheme of things, when, you know, in life it can actually be very difficult, and, you know, be full of suffering. So yeah, I don't think death's all that bad in that regard, but what do I know? I haven't died. So yeah, thanks for the video, guys. It'd be good to get your comments down below. Maybe fear of death is driving one of your themes. It'd be good to hear back from you below. So yeah, take care, and I'll see you in the next video.